Hello world, welcome back to Razor RC. It's that time of year again. It's time to do the 2020 car or truck of the year. So how this works is at the end of every year, I like to do kind of a recap on the vehicles I picked up over the last 12 months. So this will extend into a little bit of the end of 2019, but review all of the vehicles we got, rank them from worst to first. And so in 2020, we picked up 14 different vehicles, which is a record for the channel. I don't think we've ever had that many vehicles reviewed on the channel before. So a lot of different vehicles. And the only criteria is that I felt like it was the best vehicle that I picked up for the year. So we got crawlers, we got bashers, we got monster trucks, we got race buggies, stadium trucks, all kinds of vehicles, 14 scale, 8 scale, 10 scale, of course. And what I'm going to do is just count them down from 14th all the way down to first and figure out which was the best vehicle. Now, this is not scientific or anything. These are just the vehicles I personally like, the ones I enjoy, and ranking them from last to first. So without any further ado, let's get into 14th place. Coming in at last for 2020 is the WLtoys 144001. It's not a terrible vehicle by any means. It's cheap, it's fast, and so that's a lot of pros there. But to me, it's kind of limited in what it can actually do. It drives okay, but it has some flaws. The shock tower bends super easily. All the metals and stuff are pretty cheap on this thing. It is a copy of the LC Racing EMB1H, so if you're interested in this type of vehicle, I think that is probably the one to check out. This is inexpensive, so I think would make a pretty good choice for like a kid that you want something cheap that you can repair and stuff like that. Maybe something for like a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, something like that as their first RC car. I think it's decent, but at the end of the day, for a hobby grade vehicle, it is pretty budget. Not something I personally am looking for a whole lot. So in 14th place for me is the WLtoys 144001. In 13th place is the only RC car I think I've ever bought more than once. So my very first RC car was a Traxxas Stampede 4x4 VXL. I hadn't had one in a really long time and got a good deal on this used one and decided to pick it up again. So this was before the Hoss was announced. And I just bought it. It was pretty beat up, decided to fix it, repair a lot of things, upgrade, do a few videos. And so yeah, it was a pretty nice little pickup, and I had a lot of fun fixing it. But objectively, at the end of the day, the Stampede 4x4 VXL, it was good for its time, 10 years ago when it came out. I think like 2010 or 2009, somewhere around that point. It was a pretty decent vehicle. Still has kind of a classic design, but personally for me, since the introduction of the Hoss a few months ago, I think that really is a successor to the Stampede. It is more expensive. The Hoss is $100 more than the Stampede, but I do definitely think it's worth it. Stampede, it's decent, but does have a lot of weaknesses that got addressed in the Hoss. The tires, the body shell got improved. It comes with a center differential, has a steel spur gear, longer chassis, better tires. So overall, at the end of the day, I think all those improvements definitely are a much better choice. Even though they cost $100 more than the Stampede, it is well worth picking that up if you can spare the change. So for me personally, Stampede 4x4 VXL is going to come in at 13th. It is dated at this point, and I think there are better choices. In at number 12 is the Team Associated Reflex 14B. I picked this up about a year ago, I think in like December or so of 2019, and really cool little buggy. I got excited by the WLtoys 144001, decided to kind of get a more serious 14 scale vehicle that I could run at my local carpet track, maybe do a little backyard bashing, and the Reflex 14B has definitely exceeded my expectations for what a 1/14 scale vehicle can do. If you're racing, I think this is definitely something to consider. It does have a few little weaknesses. It's pretty much all plastic, including the chassis. I think something like a aluminum chassis Mini 8 or LC Racing EMB1H would be a little bit better. But at the end of the day, a lot of nice little race options. 3 differentials, they are fluid filled, although they do not seal particularly well. Brushless motor, decent ESC and servo, and yeah, nice little vehicle. Radio not particularly great, and this will definitely benefit from some new electronics, but I enjoyed this vehicle a lot, and definitely a cool little buggy from Team Associated. At number 11 is a vehicle that may surprise you because you may not actually know that I own this. So I did buy an Axial SCX10 III earlier this year. This is a ready to run crawler, you know, based on the SCX10 III, of course, the Jeep Wrangler edition. And this may show my bias a little bit, but I'm just not really into crawlers. I picked this up, I drive it a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it just kind of sits. Not a big fan of crawlers in general, so you know, maybe not really a knock against the Axial. It didn't really do anything wrong, but it is a good little vehicle. Certainly if you're looking for a crawler, this is one of the ones to definitely consider. Probably the most popular crawler on the market today, but for me personally, it just doesn't really excite me. And then, you know, I haven't really done a whole lot of videos on this just because I never really drive it that much, so you know, hard to kind of get excited about a vehicle that you don't actually drive. But yeah, coming in at number 11, the Axial SCX10 III. Coming in at number 10 is the first of the 3 Schumachers I picked up in the last year. So this is the Cougar Laydown stock spec from Schumacher, a UK company, and exciting little 2-wheel drive buggy, highly capable, pretty fast, really nice overall actually. So you may be wondering, why did I rank it in 10th place? There are some weaknesses. The main one is that it's just kind of expensive. So I think it sells for about $400 here in the United States. And then it had some nice little features, carbon fiber chassis, but I do feel like it does need some upgrades. So the aluminum chassis works a lot better. Some of the brass weights, if you're running on carpet, it is heavily underweight. I think they went just a little too far actually on the lightweight thing. Maybe you should just include the aluminum chassis and some of the weights, and that would have, you know, been enough. So at the end of the day, a good little vehicle, just a little expensive. And I feel like you do need some hop-up parts, but really nice machining overall, really cool little buggy, and definitely very fast, just a little pricey. Coming in at number 9 is the Traxxas Hoss 4x4 VXL. Awesome little monster truck from Traxxas. I don't think anyone expected this or knew about it, and I certainly was kind of surprised when they released it, because at first glance it pretty much just looks like a Stampede, maybe stretched a little bit more, maybe with some bigger tires. But if you actually get a chance to drive one of these, it's actually quite much more than that. It's got the steel spur, the center differential, this awesome little body that they finally mastered, that clip-on system type thing. It still does have all the weaknesses of the Stampede, the plastic shocks, the plastic geared servo. Yeah, and it is quite pricey as well, so definitely not the best or the winner for 2020, but pretty nice vehicle overall. Just needs to be dropped in price a little bit, but a worthy successor to the Stampede. Coming in at number 8 is a vehicle that may surprise you because it is the team associated rival MT10. I recently did a 3-way comparison between the Traxxas Hoss, the Armored Granite, and the rival MT10, and this actually placed last. So you may be wondering, well, why is it placing ahead of the Hoss now? And the reason for that is because that was based off like 6 different categories, objectively placed, you know, weighting them all equally from first to third. But subjectively, if you're considering things like performance, if you're considering things like price, considering things like how fast it is, and kind of weighting them, personally, I do like the rival MT10 a little bit better for driving. I think it handles quite a bit better, it jumps and lands a little bit better, and the price is obviously lower. It does have some weaknesses, like the front arms do break, although I was able to address that by buying some Helion Avenge MT arms. Hopefully Team Associated has addressed that and provide more beefy arms or more durable arms. But for me personally, you know, I got my rival MT10 working really well. I do prefer driving it kind of overall over the Hoss, so for me, this finishes 8th. Coming in at number 7 is a fun little 4-wheel drive buggy, the Schumacher L1 Evo. There's a little race buggy, belt drive, the last of the belt drives on the market today. And for me personally, a fun little buggy to drive. Objectively, is it the fastest buggy out there on the market? Probably not, and definitely is more complicated and a little bit more expensive, but for me, there's so much tunability. I do love belt drive vehicles, so I'm always going to buy belt drive vehicles as long as they keep making them, and Schumacher's the last one. Just fun little buggy, a little bit heavy, but it has a lot of tunability options, and for carpet, you know, certainly one of the ones out there that Schumacher is known for making really good AstroTurf and carpet vehicles. So for me, yeah, number 7, the Schumacher L1 Evo. At number 6 is the Beast, the Armored Kraton EXB. So this is the first in their EXB line, their Extreme Basher line. They're basically their 8 scale monster truck that comes as a roller. You do need to supply your own electronics, but they added a whole ton of upgrades. 7075 aluminum chassis, aluminum chassis braces, new turnbuckles, new arms, huge bumper here in the front. So they went pretty crazy on this thing, trying to make it as durable as possible. They also had the limited slip differentials, which, you know, was kind of hit or miss. Did have some issues, but I do have some videos on that as well. But yeah, overall for me, the Armored Kraton EXB, I think it's a cool truck. It's pretty neat that they made a roller that you can add your electronics, but for me personally, it was not quite as durable as I was expecting. They kind of hyped it up to be this massive extreme basher, but still had kind of the same weaknesses as before. The knuckles that pop off, the dog bones that can bend, the turnbuckle rod ends that can break. So for me personally, I don't even think this is their most durable Arma vehicle in their lineup, and you know, it's cool. I did have fun with it, but at the end of the day, when I'm bashing, this is not usually my first choice. So for me, this comes in 6th place. At number 5 is the vehicle that won my 2018 car and truck of the year, which is the Arma Granite 4x4 3S BLX. It was updated for 2020, so this is the V3 version. Some of the small little changes improve the durability. Overall, it's fairly similar, so not a whole ton of upgrades. But yeah, overall, still a good truck. I like this a lot. Still one of my preferred bashers, the ones I'm going to grab the most. As you can see here, it is in a state of repair, and things have been breaking on this, maybe a little bit more than my V1 Granite ever did, so I'm not sure if there's a little bit of a drop off in quality control or whatever. But the Arma Granite 4x4 3S BLX, still an awesome monster truck, definitely one of the best ones on the market today. But there have been some other vehicles that have come out this year, and so kind of dropped it in its ranking down to 5th place. Okay, now we're getting into the good stuff, and at number 4 is the Team Associated B6.2, probably the most popular and winningest two-wheel drive race buggy of all time. So super popular two-wheel drive. They sell tons of these, especially here in the United States, and this is a good one. Should probably actually rank a little bit higher, but the reason I didn't rate it higher is that it's not a whole lot different from the B6.1. Pretty much the dirt version is almost exactly the same. They changed the rear end a little bit, like the hubs and stuff like that, but for the most part, the geometry is just about the same. Really, it's the carpet version, the B6.2 without the D, that they made improvements on the rear end, once again, making it a lot easier to drive on carpet, a little bit longer chassis, and this one rates really highly. It's one of my favorite you know, types of vehicles. I always get whatever two-wheel drive race buggy that Team Associated comes out with. So yeah, just following along in that vein. But because there wasn't really that much new as compared to the B6.1, it rates a little bit lower. We're into the top 3 now, and coming in at number 3 is the Schumacher Storm ST. And I'll be honest, this is the only stadium truck I picked up for 2020. I kind of lost interest in stadium truck for a while. Just didn't, you know, it was kind of more on the buggy side for whatever reason. Just felt like they weren't as fun to drive. But Schumacher came out with the first stadium truck in about 20 years. Schumacher Storm ST, awesome little two-wheel drive stadium truck. It does have a lot of the Schumacher quirks, like the weird shocks, kind of that big plastic front end, has that steel top shaft. Not a big fan of, but yeah, this is a good one, especially on carpet, AstroTurf. This is definitely a contender. The Team Associated is going to come out with the T6.2 pretty soon. Strongly thinking about picking that up because I have had a lot of fun with the Storm ST, and I am curious to see how it compares to the latest from Team Associated. But for now, yeah, this is a really fun truck, and I'm really happy to have picked it up, the Schumacher Storm ST. Okay, we're down to the final 2 vehicles of 2020. These are my 2 favorite RC cars that I picked up. I'm a huge fan of 4-wheel drive buggy. They're just the most fun to drive, the fastest, the most capable, really interesting builds. And this was an exciting time for 4-wheel drive buggy because TLR finally came with a brand new 22X4, long awaited successor, the first shaft drive vehicle that TLR has had in the 4-wheel drive class. And then I was pretty sure this was going to be the winner for 2020, and I was not expecting Team Associated to come out with a brand new four-wheel drive buggy because the B74 hadn't been out that long, but they released the B74.1 and the 40 B74.1D just a couple weeks ago, and that made it a really tough call. I'll be honest, these two are really close to my heart and which one I like better, and it was a really tough decision. They're both very capable vehicles. They are actually quite different, even though the layouts, everything looks pretty similar. On paper, they look like very competitive vehicles, but they drive quite a bit differently. The TLR22X4, a really fast, much more aggressive vehicle with a stock kit setup or the carpet setup or whatever you put on it. It's super light, tons of corner speed, rips really hard, accelerates really well, jumps and lands. Actually, I think better than the B74.1. The shocks are quite a bit better. TLR has always had better shocks than Team Associated. On the B74.1 side, again, a really good car. Price-wise, they're quite competitive. This comes in two versions, the dirt and the carpet version. Amazing vehicle to drive, super neutral. I think they figure out a few things with this car that make it considerably better than the B74. Wasn't too impressed with how it looked on paper. It didn't look like they made too many changes, but it drives quite a bit better. So B74.1, much more neutral, easy to drive, very precise. I think over 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever, you'll make fewer mistakes with the B74.1. So it was really a hard choice to decide which of these two I liked better. At the end of the day, it was kind of a toss-up between speed and consistency, and both of these are important, and it kind of depends a little bit, I think, on your skill level as well. I think if you have the skills to hold on to the 22X4, you will probably lay down faster hot laps overall. I think for the average person, the B74.1 probably drives a little bit better because you're going to be a little more consistent, able to place a little bit more where you want to, right at the apex, easier to drive, make fewer mistakes. And so it was a big toss-up between these two. But in second place for me, I'm actually going to pick the TLR22X4. So the reason I picked the 22X4 second is nothing to do with the vehicle itself. I think it's fantastic. It's quite a bit lighter than the B74.1. I was really happy to see TLR come out with an all-new design, a huge update to their four-wheel drive wheeler class, because the 22.4 2.0, which I also own, was really long in the tooth. And as much as I like belt drive, I have to admit that shaft drive is pretty much better. So TLR finally updated their whole system. Follows along very similar to all the other four-wheel drive vehicles at this point. The X-Ray, the Kyosho, the Yokomo, they're all very similar, and I think they execute well. For whatever reason, this thing is extremely fast, but unfortunately at the end of the day, there was really only one reason why I picked the B74.1 in first place. And the reason for that is that it really came down to price and varieties. And what I mean by that is whether you're racing on dirt or carpet, they have a vehicle for you. I personally drive on carpet. My local indoor track is NorCal Hobbies. It's a carpet track, and the 22X4, unfortunately, out of the box is really more of a dirt car. You do have to buy quite a few more things to get it up to the carpet spec, different springs, different little dog bones for the center differential, DCV axles up front. So there was, probably about $120, $130 worth of parts I had to buy just to get it to the carpet spec, whereas the B74.1 is a carpet car out of the box. It's got the right sway bars, it's got the right arms, the dog bones, everything. It is optimized for the carpet. It drives extremely well on carpet. I have not driven the dirt version, but the carpet version is awesome. And so at the end of the day, I think for more people, including myself, you can pick up the car that's just going to be perfect for your conditions and not have to spend any more money. And then on top of that, I'm really not that great of a driver. The B74.1 for me is easier to drive, more consistent. I think I make a lot fewer mistakes with it. It's slower, I think, on a per lap basis, but I think over the course of a 5 or 10 minute main, you're going to actually probably drive a little bit better and have better results just because you're making fewer mistakes, fewer bobbles. There are some upgrades I think that would be nice, you know, some upgrades on the shocks, maybe machined internals, maybe the Kashima coated shocks. I don't know. Shocks are not particularly great on this thing, just like all Team Associated vehicles. They're not particularly great, but this vehicle overall is awesome, and it is my pick and winner for 2020 Car of the Year. Now I do have full reviews on all these vehicles, I think except for this one because this just came out. I haven't done the full review yet, but if you're interested in any of the other vehicles I picked up for 2020, you can definitely check out the full review. So hit the like, share, subscribe button. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.